Okay, so we are holding in Perek Mem Hey, Pasuk Yud, and Yosef is giving orders about what everyone is supposed to do now. Okay, so he says like this: V'yoshavto ve'eretz Goshen, and you will live in the land, you will dwell in the land of Goshen. So the question is, we started talking about this last time, but we didn't really get to it. What is the significance of them living in Eretz Goshen? What's the point of saying that you will live in Eretz Goshen? Okay, so we can glean from the end of Perek Mem Vav, according to many of the Mefarshim of that pasuk, which says that tell them that you're shepherds, and that way you'll live in the land of Goshen, because shepherds are abominable to Mitzrayim. So that pasuk suggests, as many Mefarshim say, that Goshen is somewhat separate from the rest of Mitzrayim. Okay. So then, V'yashavto ve'eretz Goshen is offering Yaakov, that even though I'm telling you to come down to Mitzrayim, I'm not telling you to live in Mitzrayim proper. You're going to have an area that's set off from Mitzrayim. So in other words, they'll have a separate place. And this we find, of course, in the whole story of the Makkahs, except for Eretz Goshen, Shasham B'nai Yisrael. So there's going to be a Jewish quarter. Yeshav Eretz Goshen, there's going to be a place that's separate from the rest of Mitzrayim. And it will be dedicated for Yaakov and his children. So, which basically, if you think about that a little more abstractly or deeper, it means that there's going to be a place that's like Eretz Yisrael. It's in Eretz Yisrael. And this I want to show you first in two places. First, I want to show it to you in Yeshaya, Perek Chav Tes and Lamed, which we looked at last week, and then we're going to see a more overt, but with less depth, parallel in Sefer Yeshua. But let's look at Sefer Yeshaya. In Sefer Yeshaya, Perek Chav Tes and Lamed, which we called upon in the previous year, in order to understand part of what Yosef is doing over here. Because what's happening in this story is Yosef says like this. Yosef says 3 times that he was sent by God. Shlachani Elikim. And Le'atem shlachtam Osiki Elikim. And then it's a very important part of his argument that he's sent by God. And why is it so important? Because he continues and tells them what to do. Maharu va'alu alavi va'amartem elav koy omar bincho Yosef. Koy omar bincho Yosef, here's what you have to do. Redoylai al ta'amoid, here's what you have to do. Now, where does Yosef get the right to tell them what to do? Why is his word their command? Because he is sent by God. So he's saying, look, I'm not here just by some fluke of random nature. Rather, clearly the miraculous events of my ascent to power and the fact that power made me Avla Besa, which is so natural, clearly means that what's happening to me is a shlichus from Hashem. And therefore, what I think is appropriate for you to do, which is for you to come to Mitzrayim, that's how Hashem is communicating with you and sending the message that you come to Mitzrayim, because I am the messenger of Hashem. So since my position here is a position of being sent by Hashem, therefore you should listen to me, and I have the authority of Hashem to speak on behalf of Hashem, and my word is like the word of Hashem. So that's what we said last week, and we're not going to review it. We're not going to review everything, but we're going to get a lot back to some of the points, and I want to show you how we saw this in Yeshaya, and how. So I'm going to go back to the references in Yeshaya, Perek Chav Tes and Lamed, and how those give us a perspective on understanding Yosef's long speech to his brothers. And we'll see there also the significance of Goshen as being a place that's separate from Mitzrayim and therefore has the quality of ציון in Yerushalayim. That's what it says in Yeshaya Perek Chaf Tes. So let's go through. We'll start from Pasuk Chaf Beis in Perek Chaf Tes. There's a message to Yaakov who should no longer be ashamed because he's going to be reunited with his children. He's going to see his children. So this, of course, is Yaakov who's suffering, and then when he sees Yosef and he sees his grandchildren and they're all back together, then you have Kadosh Yaakov. Then the Perek Chaf Tes, the Soy Ruach will then have Bina. Okay, and Perek Lamed talks about the Bonim Soirim. So they are the children of Yaakov who can be Bonim Soirim. And how's that? What's their srara? Noam Hashem, because Pasuk Beis they go down to Mitzrayim Ufi Lo Sha'alu. So they're going down to Mitzrayim without asking the word of Hashem, and this is the big theme in this whole painful, torturous process of Bnei Yisrael going down to Mitzrayim, is that it happens without the word of Hashem. It happens through the lack of nevuah. And what's happening now, taking this back to Vayigash, is that Yosef is saying, Kifi hamadaber aleichem, as we just mentioned this last week. Yosef says, Einechem ro'es ve'einei achi Binyamin, Kifi hamadaber aleichem. Okay, so what's that about? So, because really you would want the Pi Hashem to tell you what to do. And Yosef is saying that, as it says over here, how do you go down to the time? Ufi lo sha'alu. And Yosef is saying, well, look, it's my mouth speaking to you. And basically by saying it's my mouth, as if that's a reason for them to listen, he's considering his own mouth to be like the mouthpiece of Hashem. Because that was his whole argument. And we'll see whether this argument was correct or not. But just to point out that Yosef said, Koi Omar bincha Yosef. Koi Omar bincha Yosef. Redoi leil ta'amoid. Okay. Koi Omar is Koi Omar Hashem, right? So what's this Koi Omar? Instead of Koi Omar Hashem, it's Koi Omar Bincha Yosef, because he's taking on the role of a Navi, but he's not quite a Navi. He can't say Koi Omar Hashem. He has this new kind of Nevuah, which is that Hashem is orchestrating things from behind the scenes, and I understand the destiny, and therefore part of the destiny is that I should give my opinion. As a Das Torah, first recorded instance of Das Torah or something, right? It's that kind of idea. It's like, look, Hashem put me here for a reason, and therefore what I think is like Hashem is speaking. I'm going to say Koi Omar. I'm not going to say Koi Omar Hashem, but I'm alluding to that. And then I say, look, it's P. And of course the P, as Yeshaya says, what P are we looking for? Is my mouth, capital M, the mouth of Hashem. That's the mouth we're looking for. But Yosef is saying P Amadaber because he's taking on the role of being the mouthpiece for Hashem. And that's, of course, ambiguous. I mean, not it's ambiguous, but we can be ambivalent about it, about whether that's acceptable or not, and we'll see. There's in a certain sense, this is obviously the way Hashem's way of getting them down to Mitzrayim, but there's a certain at least an aspect of Yosef claiming to be the mouth of Hashem that is problematic. And both of these Nikudis, meaning both the fact that maybe they're supposed to be going down to Mitzrayim based on the Hashem orchestrating and using Yosef, and the fact that there may be something not perfect about that, are both manifest in these Parakim and Yeshaya. Okay, so far we see, don't go down to Mitzrayim without asking Hashem. The next pasuk, pasuk Beis, you're taking strength in Parai. The strength of Parai could be Baishes. Of course, we saw these pasukim numerous times. Compared it to the other pasuk where it says, a few parakim earlier, Az yachazek b'ma uzi shalom yasadi shalom, right? That the shalom of Hashem, that's the ma'oz of Hashem. Shalom Parai is this idea that you're going to get strength from Parai, not a good idea. Okay, notice in Pasuk Vav, the masa of animals. We once spoke about this, we're going to get back to it later. If I don't get back to it later, please remind me, because I didn't write it down. So there's a masa over here, just bracket this for now, but there's a masa of animals, and they're traveling through a desert, and they have things on their humps, there's camels, and they're carrying treasure to Mitzrayim, but Mitzrayim is help, won't help you. Okay, and then Pasuk Tes, back to children who are kechashim, and what do? They tell the Nevi'im, don't say Nevuah. This is the big theme that happens in the story of Yosef, the end of Nevuah, which the brothers lost Nevuah, Yaakov lost Nevuah, and they say, go off the derech, off the irach, so they don't know the way. They're going down to Mitzrayim, but they didn't ask Hashem. And eventually Yosef tells them the way. Maharu v'alu alavi, This is the way. And, okay, Pasuk Tezvav, you're supposed to come Beshuva Vanachas, but you want a horse. But that's Pasuk Tezayin. No, you want to run on a horse. This is the contrast of, does Hashem want the Gvuras Hasus, the Sheikh Ish, which is Yosef as opposed to Yaakov, as we discussed like in the past. Ki am betzion yeshi b'Yerushalayim, Pasuk Yud Tes. So what we said about this Pasuk once upon a time was, look at Pasuk Yud Tes and Chaf. It says, a nation could dwell in Tziyun and Yerushalayim. You won't cry. And Hashem will give you lechem tsar umayim lachat. So what we said once upon a time was like this. Yosef cried, and he said, Elokim yochnecha b'ni. But all his tzaras happened because that tzara, meaning that he's acting like the Adon of Mitzrayim, is because he felt that he was in a position that he has to take care of the Rav. Instead, what? Shloim Pare. He could have opted for lechem tsar umayim lachatz and then stay in Tziyun and Yerushalayim. In other words, let Mitzrayim fall, because who needs Shloim Pare? Who needs Chutz La'aretz? All we want is Tziyun and Yerushalayim. Either there's a Rav, okay, lechem tsar umayim lachatz. So that's the pasuk is here suggesting an alternative. That's one way to read this. But I want to show you another way as well. But let's read on pasuk Tchaf. It's a very strange pasuk. So Hashem will give you lechem tsar umayim lachatz v'lo yikonef oid meirecha, and your guide will no longer hide. Now who's the guide in this pasuk? So some read the pasuk that it means Hashem. But why is he being called the guide? And look at the next pasuk. It says, your ears will hear a word from you saying Zeh haderech l'chubai. So there will be a voice, like a voice coming from nowhere, saying, here's the path to take. I'll tell you exactly where to go. And your guide will no longer hide, and your eyes will see your guide. So I maintain this is talking about Yosef. Yosef is the guide who says Zeh haderech l'chubai. And he says, Al tirguzu baderech, which I learned a few psukim earlier, B'shuva v'nachas tivasheyon. It has to be B'shuva v'nachas, I'm going to take you on the derech of Menucha. Lo yikonef oid merecha, your guide will no longer hide. Yosef was hiding, he was misnaker. He's serving as the guide because he's telling you which derech to take, but is it him telling you which derech to take, or is it Hashem telling you which derech to take? Well, he's speaking for Hashem. So therefore, the pasuk of Yosef is Lo yikonef oid merecha, which is one way to read this is that it's Hashem, and you'll be seeing Hashem. Now, the same pasuk we have, so he's telling them, you are seeing me, and I'm telling you what to do. It's like you're seeing Hashem, and Hashem is your guide, and Hashem is speaking through me.
Except he didn't go with Tziyun Yerushalayim.
But he did. Because he's sending them to Goshen. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. That's my point. That by telling them come to Goshen, Goshen is decidedly not quite Mitzrayim. Okay, well let me just finish the allusions from this parak, and then I'll prove to you even more so. The parak ends with not the parak ends, but pasuk Chavav. This parsha ends. There's a break over there. When the day that Hashem is chovish is shever amay umachnotas yirpa. Oh, I'm sorry. There's also rain, right? Pasuk Chav Gimel is about rain. V'nosam etar zarachol. There's going to be rain. And so something about rain, of course, which is the anti-Mitzrayim, right? Tziyun. And the reason why there's a Rav and Lechem Tzar Mayim Lachatz is because you're depending on rain, but that's okay. Maybe that could be okay. And that's on the day that Hashem heals. Shchavoish Hashem Hashever Amay Machas Asif Yipa. Pasuk Chavav. That reminds us of a ray for the Shura Lev Mechavish Atzvaisam. Kufam Zayim, which also talks about the Matar Shalechem Basayatz means the Brian, National Katzamik, etc., etc., etc. And that's, of course, the parak about Yosef. And the reunion of Yosef and his brothers. The way we spoke about this once is that the reunion of Bnei Yisrael is Me'ain Yushalayim and Tzion, because when Yaakov is reunited with his children, he brings a miraculous Yeshua to Mitzrayim, not Shloim Pari, so it's a little bit like Eretz Yisrael, right? It's Me'ain Eretz Yisrael. When Yaakov comes to Pari and says the Rav is over, so this is where Yosef got it wrong. Okay, this is just to jump around a little bit, because Yosef said, I'm speaking for God, there's another 5 years of hunger. Maharuva alu alavi. Really, there's not another 5 years of hunger. Because lo bigu says lo shekir sheretz Hashem yisirez mal chastoi and shalech and moshe ad mehera yoretz divarai. You know what's maher? Not your prediction. Kim maher elikim v'nochen elikim lases. Right? No, it's not, because you're actually wrong. You're making a big mistake, and you're in a big rush because you think there's another 5 years of chutzah. So this is where Yosef goes wrong. He thinks he's being sent by God, and therefore he could predict the future, because I didn't stamazay interpret the dream. If I interpreted the dream and I'm hearing a message from Hashem, it must be that my interpretation is correct. And therefore I could tell you, I could talk about the future. It's an amazing thing. He says, another 5 years is hunger, without even saying how he knows this. But push it, he knows the future. Mam's talking like a god. Because he's certain of it. But there's some error there or something going on here because, or maybe that itself is being manipulated by Hashem. Hashem wants him to make this error, whatever, if you want to be on a deeper level. But the point is, what's my point? That the, why did I get to this? That the rain, because here it says Eretz Yisrael and rain, because what he's offering them the land of Goshen, which is not Mitzrayim, and so it's like ציון and Yerushalayim.
Does it rain?
What? Does it rain in Goshen? No. Benez says it doesn't. The question is where Goshen is, by the way, but either way, it doesn't rain there. But listen, think about it though. If Goshen ultimately was, okay, fine, whatever. Let's leave that question. Yeah, it doesn't rain in Goshen apparently. Okay. Right. No, I was just referencing like this. That ציון and Yerushalayim, same thing it says in Kufem Zayin. Shabach Yerushalayim Hashem Chalekayich ציון. And it's talking about when the brothers are together again, Nidche Yisrael Lechanes, because then it's like Eretz Yisrael, which is because it's kibush. I mean, if whatever, it's Bnei Yisrael living together. Shine. Don't get too technical.
He comes back and he can give Ruach.
What? Right. And then you have Reitz Hashem Reyav, and the Ruach comes back to Yaakov. So Magid Dvar of Yaakov, Yisrael Lo Yosach Chinuch Goy. The Ruach Elikim is not going to talk to Pari. All this we discussed it already. But it's like ציון. Okay, that's what I see from here. It's like ציון. And let's read. We'll go on to the next parak. Perek Lamed Aleph. Again, it decries those who go down to Mitzrayim for aid. Asusim Yisha'enu. So don't rely on the horse. Don't go to Mitzrayim. Right? Instead, you should look for Kadosh Yisrael. You remember our rule that Kadosh Yisrael in Yeshaya refers to Yosef. I once demonstrated that. And Mitzrayim is human, not God. Their horses are not spirit. Okay? So that's the whole thing. And then it goes like this. Like a lion, Pasuk Dal, like a lion is over his own teref, and all the shepherds could try to gather around him, but he's not afraid of the shepherds. So too Hashem is going to be protecting Har ציון. Okay, so it's a remarkable mashal. We're not going to go into this. This is talking about the Sancheriv. Hashem is going to protect Har ציון from Sancheriv like a lion protects his prey from the shepherds. So we are the prey of Hashem, you see. And we're being protected. Very interesting thing, and it's important because next pasuk talks about Hashem is going to protect like birds flying over. So this is a reference to Pesach, like Hashem is jumping over, and Pesach, of course, we kill a sheep, and we put the dam on the doorpost. It's like we're Hashem's prey, and therefore He protects us like a lion protects his prey. That's the mashal over here. Okay, but why am I telling you this? Because it talked about Mitzrayim not being a god, and therefore, as you see in Pasuk Ches, also Ashur is going to be taken by the superhuman sword. And it references Hashem protecting us at Makas B'chayris. When he differentiated, and what does it say in Pasuk Dal? Hashem is going to protect Har ציון. And when it talks about Hashem protecting Har ציon, it references the protection of Hashem protecting us in Mitzrayim. Gonon v'hitzil pasayach v'himlet. But that wasn't Har ציon, that was Mitzrayim. The answer is no. The whole idea of Eretz Goshen and V'hifla Hashem is not just Hashem is protecting Bnei Yisrael. It's Hashem is protecting the place of Yisrael, which is it Eretz Mitzrayim? It's Be'eretz Mitzrayim, Be'eretz Goshen. So it's this Eretz within an Eretz, and very significantly, it says Be'eretz Mitzrayim, Be'eretz Goshen. So it is within Eretz Mitzrayim, but it's still it's not just a city in Mitzrayim. It's an Eretz within an Eretz, so it's not quite Eretz Mitzrayim, maybe. And that's the pasuk over here saying that really there's certain haftacha, really a certain protection that comes to ציון. And ציon is the place where you have lechem tzar mayim lachatz, and you have rain, and so and orach hamash, and so on and so forth. And that's the place where Hashem is going to protect in the days of Sanchev, and literal Har ציון. But the same thing happens in Yerushalayim, in Mitzrayim, which gets a me'ain of Har ציון. Okay, now that's the Lumdish parallel, but now we have a very, very striking practical parallel, which is that in Sefer Yeshua, in Eretz Yisrael, there's a place called Eretz Goshen. Not Stam Goshen. There's a city called Goshen in Nachlav Yehuda. Okay, Mela. But there's actually a place called Eretz Goshen. So again, the significance of Eretz, which I think is very rare. You have to go through Sefer Yeshua and look. Are there other parts of Eretz Yisrael that are called Eretz Pliny? I don't know. There's the Eretz Hagilod, right? Hagilod, Eretz Hagilod. What's Eretz Goshen? Oh, it's actually called Eretz HaGoshen. Perik Yud Aleph Pasuk Tezayin, Eretz HaGoshen, in Sefer Yeshua, and in the end of Perik Yud in Sefer Yeshua, Perik Yud Pasuk Mem Aleph, Vayakim Yeshua Mikodesh B'nei Ad Azov is Kol Eretz Goshen. What's Eretz Goshen? Kol Eretz Goshen. There's a place in Eretz called Eretz Goshen. What is this? Now, some people say it's the same place. Radak brings from a medrash that Goshen of Mitzrayim was somewhere part of Eretz Yisrael, and that's how he reads this. This pasuk, I didn't do enough of homework about this, but I think the fact that there's a place with the same name and it's called Eretz Goshen, I think there's probably a connection, especially because of understanding that the whole significance of Eretz Goshen is that it's Me'ein Eretz Yisrael. So whether therefore there's a place in Eretz Yisrael that takes the same name because we're recalling that place, that could be, or whether it's literally the same place as